Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're going to be going through the second part in our Aeon Trespass Odyssey instructional series. We'll be covering the Voyage phase today. Now, this is going to be a longer video, one of the longest in the series. But by the time we get to the end of it, you will know how to play through the entire Voyage phase, which is a huge chunk of the game, especially the narrative portion of the game. Now, before we really get into the video, I do want to mention our sponsor, StoneValleyGames.com. This is a fantastic, friendly, distant game store where you can buy just about anything you need for your tabletop desires. You've got board games, card games, war games, RPGs, collectible card games, trading card games, everything that you want over there. They've got it. Go check them out. There's a link in the description below. Now, they also, though, have some programs. If you are a return customer, they have a loyalty program. If you are in the United States military and you are stationed overseas at an AA, AE, or AP address, they'll ship to you for free. And if you live in the continental United States, you order $100 or more from them, they will ship to you for free as well. So definitely go check them out. StoneValleyGames.com. There's a link in the description below. Now, this video includes all the rules for all of the campaign round steps for the Voyage phase. This will cover all the steps you see here. Now, I will say that there are quite a few steps and they have to be performed in the correct order and at certain times. Some of them are always, some of them are conditional. And so I strongly recommend this player-created, user-generated campaign round summary sheet over on Board Game Geek. There is a link in the description if you want to get it. This is the current version of 1.4. It's been a while since they've updated it, so I feel like this is likely the final version of this campaign round summary sheet. And I have this open all the time when I'm playing through the Voyage phase. It really makes it easy to reference exactly what you're supposed to do, help you avoid skipping steps. So definitely check this out. If you want to have a good reference, so you're not flipping back and forth through the rule book. Now, sometimes in these campaign round steps, a particular step may launch you into an adventure or a battle. But when you are not in an adventure or in a battle, then you're considered to be in the Voyage phase. The first step is the movement step, and you will always do the movement step. During the movement step, you must move the Argo to an adjacent map tile. You are not allowed to simply stay on the tile you're on. Directional arrows found here, here, and here on this particular tile represent waterways you can travel through. If the tile you're moving to isn't already on the table, you need to find that map tile. As you can see, 32 here, 32 here, and place it adjacent to the map tile you're on. Make sure that the directional arrow on the shared border of the two tiles aligns. It's also important that the tiles are always oriented the same way so that the artwork matches up. So you couldn't do it like this or something like that. Most of the time, the position of the Argo on the tile doesn't matter. Over here, whatever, it doesn't matter. However, sometimes a map tile is divided into tile sectors marked with an alpha and beta symbol, as you see here, alpha and beta. In this case, the position of the Argo on the tile matters. It will either be in this sector up here or this sector down here. As you can see, this tile has two arrows pointing to the next tile. So if you had started here, you would know the upcoming tile was sectored. When on this tile and deciding to move to 0, 1, 0, you would need to decide if you were moving to this arrow or this arrow prior to seeing what this tile had to offer. Then once it's placed, you would move to the pre-selected sector. Once on this tile, you can then only follow the arrows in your sector. So you could only leave this tile by this arrow, or this arrow, not these arrows up here. It's important to realize, though, that the sector you're on does not affect your access to the map symbols. You will resolve all map tile symbols on your tile, even if graphically they seem to be located in a different sector. Most waterways are accompanied by movement symbols that provide additional information or requirements that may influence your movement. The faction symbols that you see here inform you about the local faction that you can encounter on a map tile that your current tile connects to. So here we knew moving under this tile, we'd have the Minoan faction. And then we know that if we went this way, we'd have the Minoan faction over here. But moving down to 037 or 031, we might encounter the Hornsworn faction. As usual, you may also encounter other cycle-specific symbols, in which case they will be explained in the corresponding storybook, or possibly on tech cards. It's important to realize that movement symbols never block movement, though, unless they are accompanied by this lock symbol. In that case, you'll have to have the appropriate technology or other ability to let you get past the lock. Next, we'll run through the most common map symbols you'll encounter in each cycle, but this list is not comprehensive. If you encounter a map symbol you are not familiar with, consult the storybook as well as your current story and Doom cards and your tech deck. If you don't find the rule pertaining to the specific symbol there, don't worry about it. That probably just means that the relevant rule will become available to you later. The Doom symbol indicates during the exploration step you will gain +1 Doom. The progress symbol indicates during the exploration step, if this tile is unexplored, you will gain +1 progress. The Titan symbol indicates that during the exploration step, if this tile is unexplored, you will gain +1 Dreamwalker Titan. The adventure symbol denotes an adventure hub. During the expedition step, if the tile is unexplored, you will resolve an adventure from one of your cycle's adventure hubs. This symbol denotes an R&R adventure. During the expedition step, if this tile is unexplored, you will resolve an adventure from the R&R section. We'll discuss adventures in more detail during the next video. This symbol indicates a city or similar large settlement. There are no inherent effects, but it will allow the usage of negotiation technology abilities during the advancement step. After you move from a map tile with a city symbol, mark the tile with the last city visited token. You cannot use negotiation technology abilities on a tile with this token. Remember that you only mark the last settlement you visited. When you leave another tile with the city symbol, you'll move the token from the current location to that new city. Step 2 is the timeline step. During the timeline step, simply mark the next empty box on the Voyage timeline. This indicates the current day of your Odyssey. If you've gone all the way to the end of the timeline and you're trying to mark the next box and there are no more boxes to mark, your time has run out and your campaign is lost. If there are any symbols on the timeline, you will need to resolve whichever symbol is on the day that you've just begun. Different events throughout the game may also have you jot down notes and other special events on the lines here, and those will need to be resolved as well. However, it's important to note that these symbols and special events and all of that will have specific moments during the round when you will resolve them, and it must be done at that appropriate campaign round step. On this particular timeline, you'll find acclamations at day 18, 36, and 54. An acclamation upgrades your exploration deck with new cards and is resolved during the exploration step. Battles are marked with the crossed swords that you see here. Both these predetermined battles and other battles that may come up will be resolved in the encounter step. There are two types of technology breakthroughs indicated by these two different symbols here. This indicates a structural technology breakthrough, and this indicates a battle technology breakthrough. These will be resolved during the advancement step. Also, all events added to the timeline by using Argo facilities are resolved in the advancement step. Any event, such as the Cackle special event, that leads directly to a story paragraph in the storybook, as well as any other events that are not breakthroughs, advancements, acclamations, or battles, are considered story events, and they should be resolved in the story step. Step 3 is the exploration step. You can see it's one of the more involved steps. During the exploration step, you resolve all active exploration symbols from your current tile, perform an exploration draw from the exploration deck, and move the adversary if required, and on occasion, perform an acclamation. So let's go through each of those individually. Exploration symbols represent predictable elements present in the region, both beneficial and detrimental to your cause. The most common exploration symbols are Progress, Doom, and Titan. Positive exploration symbols such as Progress and Titan symbols are active only on unexplored tiles and as such are only resolved once per tile per cycle. This means that if you revisit a tile with positive symbols, they will not resolve again. Negative exploration symbols such as Doom are active on both explored and unexplored tiles, so if you revisit that tile, you will have to resolve the negative exploration symbols. After resolving any exploration symbols, you'll resolve an exploration draw. The exploration draw is the main source of mortal resources. To perform the exploration draw, start drawing cards from the deck. You will draw cards from the top of the deck and resolve them one by one until you draw a card that shows the stack end symbol here in the bottom right corner. After you find your first stack end symbol, you'll begin a second stack in the same manner. And so here we end as well. However, it's possible that each stack could have a different number of cards. As you can see, we don't have an end stack yet. We still don't. And now we do, and so each of these cards would have been resolved in order as they were drawn. Exploration cards are always resolved from top to bottom for the main effect here. This symbol indicates an adversary activation. Certain cards may have a special disposal effect, and if so, it will be found here at the bottom of the card. In this case, it says remove until the next timeline battle, so you would simply set this card aside somewhere, and then after resolving the next timeline battle, it would then go back into the exploration deck. If a card is removed permanently, then of course just return it to the game box. And if there is no special disposal effect as you see here, then the card is shuffled back into the exploration deck at the end of the exploration draw. Certain exploration card effects can be triggered by your diplomacy score as you see here. Also, the Argo Fate value or any of the other statistics could come into play here. Only resolve effects that apply. So in this case, if you were not denounced by the local faction, then you would not have to resolve that. Diplomacy, unless otherwise stated, of course, will always refer to the local faction. Resolving most exploration cards will provide you with useful mortal resources, in this case, gain 2 armament resources. But some of them may end up with penalties, as you see here. It's even possible that you'll find some rare exploration cards that allow you to trade resources. The Adversary is a special primordial that actively hunts the Argo on the map. The storybook will instruct you when to introduce an adversary into your campaign as well as how to defeat it. At the beginning of a new cycle, the adversary is not placed on the map by default, and it will not start chasing you until the storybook says that it will. Until it begins chasing you, you can ignore the adversary activation icons. Once the adversary has been introduced and you then encounter an adversary activation icon, if the adversary is already present on the map as you see here, then move it 1 tile towards the Argo along the shortest available path. If the adversary makes it all the way to the Argo, remove this miniature from the map, and then trigger an adversary battle. The adversary battle will be resolved at the end of the current step. However, if the adversary is not on the map yet, and this is the first adversary activation symbol you've drawn, nothing happens. If during the exploration step you then encounter a second adversary activation symbol, the adversary spawns 4 tiles away from the Argo. In this case, there are not 4 tiles away for the adversary to spawn, and so instead it will spawn as far away as possible. During the exploration step in which you spawn the adversary, you immediately end this adversary activation and ignore any other adversary activations until the end of the current step. It is very important to realize, though, that outside of the exploration step, anytime you encounter this symbol, it will only take 1 adversary symbol to spawn the adversary. In all other ways, the symbols are treated the same. The adversary will only ever move vertically or horizontally, never diagonal, and it only moves through revealed tiles, so it would never go like that, for instance. The adversary can move onto any adjacent map tile, even if it's not connected by these directional arrows. It will also completely ignore sectors and all other map symbols. If there is more than one equally viable path, the adversary prioritizes horizontal as long as it brings it closer to the Argo. So in this case, it would move this way. If the adversary is already on the same tile as the Argo during an activation, it does not move, but you still trigger the adversary battle. And if an adversary activation happens during a battle, you must resolve it as soon as the current battle ends. After resolving the exploration draw, if your current day has an acclimation, you will resolve that. Keep in mind this is still part of the exploration step, so if an adversary battle has been triggered, you would do the acclimation prior to that battle. To perform an acclimation, you remove the indicated cards from the exploration deck. So in this case, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 19. And then you would return these cards to the box, and then you replace them with 10, 11, 12, 14, and 22. The fourth campaign round step is the expedition step. During the expedition step, if the Argo is on an unexplored tile with an adventure icon, as you see here, or an R&R adventure symbol, resolve an adventure phase. Keep in mind that all newly revealed tiles are unexplored, and then they become explored during the end step. So if you go back to an explored tile, you will not resolve an adventure or R&R symbol. The fifth step is the encounter step. During the encounter step, you will meet the primordials. This is when you'll resolve timeline battles and any other battles noted on the timeline. For timeline battles, you'll get to choose which of the two regular primordials for that cycle you're going to face. When making this choice, you always must choose the leftmost rank of the selected primordial. But that means I could technically face another level 1 hecaton here, and then a level 2 hecaton, and then another level 2 hecaton, and then decide to come back and face a level 1 labyrintharus there. Once you've made your choice, let's say it's the hecaton, you would then look in the cycle book to find the hecaton battle on page 108 and then set up the battle. For adversary battles, find the corresponding entry, pursuer battle on page 118, and set up following those instructions. Additional battles will point you to a specific page of the storybook containing battle setup instructions for that one. Resolving a battle happens during a battle phase, which we'll cover in parts 4 and 5 of this video series. Step 6 is the advancement step. During the advancement step, you research new tech, you trade, craft gear, create new titans, and make use of the Argo facilities. Researching tech is the main way of keeping up with the rapidly evolving primordials. These are some examples of technology cards you might have in your tech deck. When you research technology, you'll gain that technology card. One thing every tech card has in common is that it's double-sided. One side shows a science project, a field of study, or a hypothesis. This is where you'll find the tech requirements. In this case, Arrow Barrage requires trireme ranged weapons. And you'll also learn about other techs that will become available for research once you have researched this card. In this case, it leads to Crisis Protocol and basic support equipment. The other side shows the benefits of researching the tech. These may range from building a facility that will allow you to craft new gear to gaining unique abilities useful both in and outside of battle. In this case, an Argo ability useful in battle. So let's say we do have trireme ranged weapons researched, and this day has us scheduled for a combat technology breakthrough, and we decide to research Arrow Barrage. We flip it over to the technology side, and we'd add it to our deck of researched technology. You immediately gain access to all abilities provided by tech that's in the tech deck. Also, it's important not to forget that when you research technology, the leads to items need to be added to the projects deck. In this case, Crisis Protocol and basic support equipment. So you would search through all of the possible projects that you may come across and find Crisis Protocol, add that project to your project deck, basic support equipment. You gain absolutely no benefits from these as they are just theoretical until you've researched them. However, you can freely look at both sides to determine which ones you want to research next. It's very important to realize that some tech cards have more than one requirement, such as trireme ranged weapons requires both trireme weapons and trireme armor. This card could end up in the project's deck with only one of these requirements completed. You may only research it once both of those requirements have been unlocked. Tech that is neither in the tech deck nor in the project's deck are considered to be in the reserves and should be kept in the game box. It's also important to realize that while some tech cards are larger than others, mechanically they operate exactly the same. Technologies are divided into three types. Core technologies are non-researchable. They are gained automatically, usually at the start of the cycle. These tech cards are large, and some of them have cycle-specific versions, so be sure to use the right card during your campaign. Structural technologies, indicated by this symbol here, include utility facilities that allow you to mitigate the hardships of the voyage, manage resources, breed new titans, and scout the region, and more. Battle technologies, indicated by this symbol, include production facilities giving you access to new gear cards and Argo abilities, providing unique abilities during battle. New tech cards can only be researched on specific timeline days called tech breakthroughs. These are marked by the battle symbol here or the structural symbol here. If there is one of these symbols on your current day on the timeline, you may research one tech of the appropriate type from your project's deck. Structural and battle tech will always lead to more tech of the same type. Just remember, you must fulfill all of its requirements. In general, there will be no additional cost to research a new tech. If a tech does happen to have an additional cost or condition, they will be very clearly described on the card itself. As we've said, most of the time the breakthroughs are how you're going to gain tech cards, but occasionally you may gain a tech card through some other source. In that case, simply add it to your tech deck, making sure to also add any tech cards it leads to your project's deck. It's also possible you may have something added to your project's deck in a way that isn't from a leads to box. In that case, just add it to your project's deck. Tech cards provide access to various benefits and can be used in many different ways, both during and outside of battle. Structural technologies such as these are primarily used outside of battle. Some of them provide permanent bonuses or must be resolved the moment they are researched. Others grant access to active abilities. If an active ability of a structural tech does not specify when it can be used, then it can be used during the advancement step. Each active tech ability can be used once per day with the exception of save abilities such as this one. Each active tech ability can be used once per day with the exception of save abilities such as this one. Reference abilities such as these include rule summaries and serve as a reminder. They do not introduce any additional effects of their own. Negotiation abilities, such as this one, may be used while on a map tile with a city symbol, such as this one, as long as it is not the last city visited. Save abilities may be used on demand whenever you need them. The only limit is one use per ability per game effect. In other words, you cannot use one save ability to try to mitigate the same effect multiple times, but you can use it again if you suffer a different effect of the same type. Battle technologies usually take the form of production facilities or Argo abilities. Production facilities give you access to new gear cards and are only used for crafting. Argo abilities are used during battle. Some game elements, such as certain exploration cards and technologies, may allow you to trade resources. Each of these effects has a limited number of resources exchanges you can perform. A single exchange is a trade of one resource type for another resource type, according to the ratio noted on the card. Crafting is the main source of new gear cards that can greatly improve the combat capabilities and survivability of your Titans. You can craft multiple gear cards during every advancement step as long as you can pay for them. You can only craft gear listed on the production facilities in your tech deck, and you cannot craft more copies of a gear card than are available in the box. The cost of each card is printed on the production facility tech card. To craft a gear card, perform the following steps. Choose an available gear card you would like to craft, such as the Sail Spolis. Spend the resources, in this case 3 armament and 5 raw ambrosia. You would simply erase these from your Argo sheet. If another gear card is part of the cost, then return that gear card to the box. You then add the crafted gear card to your Argo armory. From now on, it can be equipped to your Titans and used in battle. Now let's talk about resources. Resources are mainly gained from the exploration deck and primordial battles. Resources will differ between cycles, but there are 4 main categories. Mortal resources here represent ordinary tools, vessels, and armaments that can be salvaged from the remnants of mortal civilization. Primordial resources here represent body parts of slain primordials and are mainly earned as a result of primordial battles. Out of all primordial resources, the cores are the most valuable. Divine resources here represent extremely rare items that possess exceptional qualities or are necessary components for some of the most powerful gear cards. And there are rare resources that are not listed on the Argo sheet. When you gain a rare resource, write both its name and quantity here under rare resources. Certain tech allows you to breed Titans either by evolving the ones you have already captured or catching new ones to replenish your stock. Each breeding tech shows the cost of breeding a specific Titan and how many days it's going to take. All Titans are considered either Gaia-born or Argo-bred. Gaia-born are caught in the wild, and all are considered Dreamwalker class. Argo-bred Titans are all classes other than Dreamwalker. This is true even if they are gained through means other than breeding. The Earthshaker is an example of an Argo-bred Titan. You may have more than one Titan of a given Argo-bred class on the Argo, however, you cannot breed a Titan of a class you already have on board. And you can only take one Titan of a particular class into battle at a time. Titans are bred using tech cards like this one. When you use a tech to breed a Titan, you pay the associated cost. In this case, you lose one Dreamwalker Titan. And then you write the Titan's class on the timeline, the indicated number of days from the current day. So in this case, 10 days from now, and you would write down Earthshaker if that was the Titan you were breeding. When you reach that day during the advancement step, you resolve it and gain the new Titan. A given tech card may only be involved in one breeding process at a time. Certain production facilities will allow you to craft Titans alongside gear cards. Fusing a Titan in such a way requires 2 things, one Dreamwalker Titan and a specific primordial core. If you have these, you pay the cost and immediately gain access to the new Titan. From time to time, a Titan will stand out from the rest. These types of Titans get names. Named Titans will usually have some special quality to them. The most common is that they have a pattern, such as the Aeon strain. Some effects may also require you to note the Titan's name on the timeline or somewhere else. If the Titan is not already named, you must immediately name it and resolve the effect, and you can track your named Titans in this area here. Anytime a Titan is assigned a pattern, such as the Aeon strain, they should get a name. As I already showed you, patterns will override the Titan's basic trauma table here, or maybe their Kratos table here. It may also sometimes introduce new special rules or abilities. You simply place the pattern over the table, it replaces. A Titan can have more than one pattern, but if both patterns relate to the same game element, the newer one will override the older, which will then be discarded. And when a Titan with an assigned pattern dies, that pattern is lost. Step 7 is the story step. During the story step, you'll resolve main story progression, timeline story events, Nemos breakthroughs, and any secret codes you manage to find. All adventures that were triggered earlier will resolve during this step. Story progression is how you win the game. Main story progression is resolved only if you fulfill all requirements noted on your current story card. Usually, story progression triggers when there are a certain number of progress tokens on the current story card. In this case, you need 6 or more progress tokens. However, the requirement could be something else, such as being on a certain map tile. Regardless, your current story card will specify the exact thing you need to do to trigger its story progression. When you meet its requirements, you will resolve its story progression during the story step. Most of the time, resolving a story progression involves flipping your current story card to the opposite side, or referring to a paragraph in your current storybook, or referring to your next story card, or possibly even another game element. When you resolve the current story progression, discard all progress tokens that were on it. Each cycle has a number of clue cards that influence the game by introducing new rules, mechanics, and hints. Clue cards have this distinct back showing the number of the cycle they belong to, cycle 1 in this case, and the number of the story or doom card that they will be introduced with, story 2A in this case. Story events are like battle events and advancement events in that they are either already printed on your timeline or you will add them there yourself. If there is a story event noted on your current day, so Cackle special event for instance, if we were on day 6, find the passage it leads to in the storybook and read it. So you would look here, you'd find special events 83, and there's Cackle right there. It should be kept in mind that special events such as Cackle do not lead to a specific paragraph, but instead you find a passage with the designated name in the special events section of the storybook. Nemos breakthroughs are pieces of your lost memories. Once you gain enough Nemos nodes, you will trigger the next breakthrough. We'll discuss Nemos breakthroughs in detail in the next part of this series. Rarely, you will find a secret 4-digit number. If you do, then during the story step, you may find the corresponding paragraph in the main story section of your current storybook and resolve it. For obvious reasons, I don't want to show you what any of these might look like, and unless otherwise stated, each secret code paragraph can only be resolved once. Step 8 is the Doom step. Doom is represented by Doom tokens and Doom cards, and is essentially the antithesis of progress tokens and story progression on story cards. Doom cards will lead to your defeat. Doom progression is resolved when you fulfill the requirements of your current Doom card, in this case when there are 5 or more Doom tokens on this card. Most of the time, resolving Doom progression involves flipping to the opposite side, or referring to a paragraph in your current storybook or some other game element, including moving on to another Doom card after this one. Now, unlike story progression, when you resolve Doom progression, you will only discard the exact number of Doom tokens required to progress this Doom card. Since there were 5 required, I only removed those 5, and now I'm left with this one. This excess will move on to the next Doom card, like this. You should keep in mind that if you were on side B of the last Doom card of a cycle, resolving Doom progression once more will lose you the game. And finally, step 9 is the end step. During the end step, if you are currently on an unexplored tile, it's now considered explored. There's nothing specific you do, just know it's now been explored. After resolving the end step, you now proceed to the next campaign round. Now that covers everything you need to know about the campaign steps, but before we complete the video, let's cover a few additional Voyage phase rules. Now, you will not be able to complete an entire campaign of Aeon Trespass Odyssey in one sitting, and therefore saving the campaign periodically is very important. At the end of any campaign round step, you may decide to save your game progress and end your current session. However, it is advisable to save after the end step. That way it's just clean and you're able to start at step 1 at the beginning of your next session. To save your game, you'll need the Argo sheet, and then you'll perform these steps. First, you'll note the number and letter of your current story card, along with how many progress tokens you have on it. Note the number and letter of your current Doom card, along with your Doom tokens. Note the number of your current map tile. To the right of the choice matrix here, note any other map tile numbers relevant to the current story and Doom cards, maybe where the last visited city token is, or anything else that's of note. You should also note here where the Adversary is if it's on the map. Note the current Triskelion stats for each of your Argonauts, and then store your tech deck, projects deck, Argo Armory deck, Exploration deck, Nemo's Vault, gained clue cards, and all unlocked God Form and Summoning cards separate from the other components of the same type to easily access them when you resume your campaign. Also, make sure to keep the explored map tiles separated from the rest of the map tiles so that you can easily tell which ones you've already explored. During the course of the campaign, you will unlock mythic allies that can be summoned to turn the tide of battle or enable game-changing Voyage abilities. These allies are known as nymphs. Because they have such game-changing abilities, their usage is extremely limited. Each Nymph Summoning has a corresponding tarot-sized summoning card and a matching summoning token. Every summoning has its own requirements and sometimes its own costs, which can be found on this side of the card. Once you use a summoning, you use up one summon charge. To indicate this, you'll mark a box in the summoning section, which denotes a spent charge. In total, you cannot use more summon charge than your current summon limit, which is tracked here. You will find your summon limit on the tech card that will allow you to perform summonings in the first place. Whenever you research or gain a tech card with a summon limit that is higher than your current limit, the higher value becomes your new limit. You don't add it to your current limit. So for instance, if I researched another tech card that gave me a summon limit of 2, I would erase this one, and my limit is now 2. Also, once you use one of your summonings, it exhausts. So after you've marked a summon box to show that a summoning has occurred, you also write its name next to that box. This denotes that it has been exhausted. That particular summoning will remain unusable until the next Divine Surge. Very rarely, you may gain access to a one-off summoning, usually a nymph you don't normally have access to. When this happens, you also gain a bonus summoning charge. This charge can only be used to summon that specific nymph, and that nymph can only be summoned once. Consequently, that bonus summoning charge does not get replaced during a Divine Surge, and you have to return the summoning card to the box as soon as you use it, unless of course it has also been permanently unlocked. To keep track of this, you will note the summoning's name in the summoning section, but you will not mark the box next to it. This indicates that it is available and does not count towards your summon limit. On the other hand, if you gain a bonus summoning charge that is not tied to a specific summoning, then you would encircle one of these summoning boxes to show that it does not count towards the summon limit and has not yet been used. All summoning cards have the Adversary symbol. This means whenever you perform a summoning, the Adversary immediately moves towards the Argo. A Divine Surge is a periodic game effect that allows you to replenish available God forms as well as summonings and summon charges. Divine Surges are mainly associated with major breakthroughs in the story. Whenever you are instructed to perform a Divine Surge, simply erase all marks and names from both the God forms and the summonings section of the Argo sheet. Now let's talk a little bit about diplomacy. During your voyages, you will meet many peoples. Your standing with a given faction is known as your diplomacy score. Your diplomacy score will influence everything from the resources you gain during the exploration step to the available choices during your adventures to battles and various tests. You should note your current standing here on these 3 diplomacy tracks. Whenever you gain or lose diplomacy with a given faction, you will simply move up or down the associated track. You'll also note that each track is divided into thresholds: allied, friendly, neutral, unfriendly, denounced, and at war. Various game elements will include diplomacy triggers, which may modify their effect. They may also extend or restrict your options. It's important to realize that unless explicitly stated otherwise, though, these always refer to your diplomacy threshold or score with the local faction only. Whenever you test diplomacy, raise or lower your result by the value indicated in the parentheses of the threshold you're currently within. If you ever reach the At War section, there is no going back. You can no longer gain or lose diplomacy with that faction. Throughout the game, you will gain or lose many different things. Some tech abilities may allow you to perform a save test to prevent that gain or loss. These abilities will include the word save, like this. A successful save test allows you to ignore gaining or losing that specific game element that it refers to, in this case, strangers. It can be re-rolled using Argo Fate just like any other Argo test. Each save ability can only be used once per single instance of gaining and loss. However, if you possess multiple separate abilities that would allow you to perform a save test for the same effect, you can use as many of them as you like during one instance. If you gain or lose the same game element more than once in a day from different sources, you can use the same save ability for each of these gains or losses. And you cannot use save abilities to mitigate unavoidable gain or loss. It's also important to realize that if the gain or loss is listed in the text of an active ability, story choice, or any other non-forced effect, it is considered a voluntary gain or loss and cannot be mitigated in any way. In other words, to resolve the effect, you must gain or lose all listed game elements. And finally, when you are instructed to gain or lose as a group, you distribute the specified statistic or element among all the Argonauts in any way you see fit, and it does not have to be distributed evenly. So there you go. That is everything you need to know about the Voyage phase of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Be sure to come back and check out our future videos. We're going to be going through everything you need to know in this entire fantastic game. Our next video, part 3, will cover the adventure phase. After that, we'll have the battle setup as well as the primordial round of battle. And then after that, in part 5, will be the Titan round. And then finally, we'll wrap everything up by going over the gear, terrain, and ability keywords. If you did enjoy this video and you want to support the channel, of course the best way to do that is to like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to throw a little bit more support my way, please leave a super thanks in the comments below or check out a few other ways in the description as well. Also check out other great videos coming up. We've got how to play Frosthaven. We have how to play 1815 Scum of the Earth, how to play Lands of Galzer, and how to play Nemo's War, all coming up very soon. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.